So we're going to continue our discussions around common errors that are made when drafting one's will. And again, we've got Gareth and Hannah in studio with us today. Gareth, it's really important for testators to understand the effects of making special bequests in their will, as these bequests can affect the liquidity of one's estate, and it can also ultimately impact on the value of the inheritance that is received by one's heirs. Can you just talk about the importance of understanding the impact of special bequests?
Yeah, so remember the order that estates are wound up in. It tends to be the creditors and the expenses are handled first. Thereafter, the special or specified bequests will come in place, and only then will the residue of the estate be distributed. So if we find that we are making special bequests and the cash, the estate is left in a position that we call illiquid, so it doesn't have the cash available to take care of its other obligations, what that may then force the executor to do is actually sell other assets, the likes of a property or something like that, that may be being left to your spouse, in order to generate funds to then meet the requirements of these special cash bequests. And thereafter, yes, the residue would go through, but you don't want a situation where maybe you're sitting on a significant property, maybe 4 or 5 million rand, and you made a 200,000 rand cash bequest, and now this sort of property is sold to provide for a cash bequest, and now your spouse, yes, will receive the balance of the funds, but now they've kind of lost their family home. It creates all sort of unintended consequences. So just be aware and make sure that when you are doing your estate planning, you have run through this liquidity calculation.
Exactly. So your will must go hand in hand with the estate liquidity calculations. Absolutely. So Hannah, let's talk about signing the will. It seems simple that you just sign the will, but it's actually to have a valid will. There's a lot more that goes into getting the signing right. Can you just explain to us what it means to sign your will validly?
First of all, will does need to be signed. A lot of people think that because they have a will, they just haven't signed it yet, it might be valid. It does need to be signed by the testator on each page. That is a legal requirement. And if you don't do that, it could lead to the will being invalid. So again, another problem down the line. And it is required to be signed by 2 witnesses. So while it's not a requirement for the witnesses to sign on each page, it is advisable that they sign on each page in the presence of each other, just to ensure that the will remain valid.
Another common error that testators or testatrixes make is they mention assets in the will that actually don't fall within the deceased estate. Can you maybe use an example or mention a couple of examples of this?
So there are some assets that don't form part of your estate. So again, back to an estate plan and kind of doing the calculations is important. A living annuity with a nominated beneficiary does not form part of your estate. So those proceeds will be paid to the nominated beneficiary. It won't form part of any administration with the estate, as well as a life policy with a beneficiary. So proceeds from a life policy will be payable directly to that beneficiary, and those processes can be done a bit faster than your estate administration. So it's important to take note of all of these things when you're planning for in the event of your death and providing for your family.
Correct. And I mean, mentioning a life policy or a retirement fund in your will is just going to cause confusion and have your loved ones question your intentions. Gareth, it seems obvious, but a will is not the place to express your emotions. Is that correct?
No, unfortunately not. You know, remember, a will is a legal document. It's your last will and testament. So you want it to be handled in a legal manner. So really what you are doing is you are just leaving a sort of a testament in terms of how you would like your assets, your belongings, distributed amongst your friends and family, however you wish. If there are any emotions running high, I mean, we spoke about it earlier in terms of creating any unnecessary ambiguity in a will, rather leave that for letters to family or a separate document. But as far as possible, try and make sure that your will remains a fairly clean-cut, concise legal document that you are happy with the contents of, and make sure it's executable as well.